Welcome to Muffin Talk.
Kia ora and welcome to Muffin Talk. Muffin Talk is a program by the initiative Titipounamu, Study and Joy. My guest today is Elena Burduk. Kia ora, Elena. Warm welcome and haere mai to Muffin Talk.
Kia ora, Beatty. Thank you for having me.
Elena and Здравствуйте. I understand you are originally from the Soviet Union, from the former Soviet Union, which doesn't exist anymore. But you come from this huge empire in which one language dominated, the Russian, and that's your native tongue. So, Elena, can you tell us a little bit of growing up in the former Soviet Union? How important was that to have this common tongue, and where did you actually live?
Yes, I was born in Central Asia, and we all spoke Russian because, as you mentioned, it was all former Soviet Union, and everybody, that was the main language of communication. And I grew up in a small town, and I wanted to move to Ukraine because my mom is Ukrainian, and I wanted to study there. And that's how and then I got married, and so altogether I spent 11 years in Ukraine.
So your heart is certainly still in Ukraine.
That's for sure. Mm.
And I also see that you have a Ukrainian pattern that you're wearing on your blouse.
Yes, I just I don't have many occasions when I can wear it, but I'm proud of being Ukrainian.
And Ukraine recently has been in the media mainly because of the war in Ukraine. But can you tell us a little bit about pre-war Ukraine?
Yes, being part of Soviet Union, it was everything was the same with everywhere in Russia. And one thing that people might not, people from overseas might not understand unless they read about it, that you can move within the Soviet, you could move within the Soviet Union, like go on holiday or visit people here and there, but you were kind of assigned to a place, and we all had our passports with our where you live. You couldn't just move somewhere and live somewhere else unless you got a job and a house or a flat. Mainly people used to live in flats rather than houses, not many houses. Yeah. That was basically, and I moved a little, I traveled a little around the former Soviet Union. But basically you had to live where you were born.
And so because your mother was Ukrainian, it was maybe easier to move to Ukraine.
That was just my dream, and I got it because when I started studying, and then I got married, so that was easier. Mm.
Yes. How was the situation in the former Soviet Union? Did you grow up with having Christian classes at school, or what was the role of Christianity during the former Soviet Union?
No, that's for sure. We were taught that Christianity is just a myth at school, and I believed it wholeheartedly because you believe what you're told when you're a kid. Later, I've learned that there is this, Russian Orthodox Church is a state allowed church, and still it wasn't encouraged. It wasn't part of my life at all. And I was taught that Christians are brainwashed, people, and that's what I believed. And they're poor, they needed help, they need salvation from Christianity. That's what my belief. And I, sometimes I was talking about it, and I wasn't shy of giving my opinion on this matter. There were later when I became a Christian, in Ukraine, I learned about underground churches that were there for years, all through the Soviet Union era. People had hard life. Later, when I learned and I read more about it, it was very hard to be a Christian and to say it, upright that I'm a Christian. It was hard for them. Mm.
Yeah, that that's similar to what I have heard about the former German Democratic Republic, where there were a lot of churches that were hidden and people were meeting in their apartments rather than in public places
Mm.
and were still practicing. So how did you become then a Christian if you were convinced that Christianity was just a myth and so you come with that attitude to Ukraine? What changed your life?
Yes, it was, first of all, I'm quite a kind of responsible person, so I thought I need to read the Bible and tell the Christians that why this is wrong, because that's what I was taught, that it's full of contradictions and so on. So I couldn't really, talk about it unless I read it. So I started reading the Bible. And in Ukraine, it's actually a long story, but to make it short, things were happening in my life that made me think. And eventually, in Ukraine, there was a time when um, pastor of this particular church, evangelical church, took time and effort to talk to me. And I was like, yeah, I know. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's fine. But, things inside me were changing until one day I didn't really need anyone to tell me anymore. So it was the work of the Holy Spirit, I should say. Yeah, I believe that.
So that's just amazing that you had the pastor approached you, and it was through the pastor's work and through your curiosity that you wanted to know more about Christianity.
Yes.
And how is the situation today? Now you are based in New Zealand, on the other side of the world from Ukraine, where you first entered a church, I assume. Are you in touch with the Christians in Ukraine, especially
Yes,
this
people
time?
ask me if I have, when they hear I'm from Ukraine, they ask, have you got a family there? And I say, I've got my church family there, because, they're my brothers and sisters. And the situation, I am in touch with them all the time. And I get some updates from my pastor. We're in touch over WhatsApp. And he told me that there was a time when the missile flew over the church and hit the house 500 meters away from church, and they were in the basement, not even a bomb shelter, in the basement of the church. 150 people, adults and children, were hiding there. And the house that was hit, the building, the apartment building was hit by the missile and two people died. So it was yeah, one of I hear many stories like this, and we get the reports from my organization as well. Mm.
And you mentioned your organization. What is your organization?
Yes, SGA, Slavic Gospel Association. I work for this organization for since 2007. The main mission of SGA is to connect New Zealanders with the evangelical churches in former Soviet Union and Israel. And we work with, it's an established network, so there is no need to send a missionary from New Zealand. They're already there. They know the culture, they live there, they have their connections, and they are ready to serve. But of course, there are some, lack of finances and lack of resources, especially now in Ukraine. I'm sure your listeners know that that or heard that 50% of infrastructure in Ukraine is damaged now. It's not there. So now it's winter and people are struggling there it's cold. And that sometimes my pastor told me that there was a day when they had 13 hours without electricity. There are waves of how it's all very complicated. I cannot really imagine how they can live through that. I remember when in 90s when I was still living in Ukraine, we had things like that when the electricity was turned off because the Soviet Union was struggling. The electricity was turned off for 2 or 3 hours a day throughout the winter. Um, and now I can imagine how difficult it is, especially it's not just electricity, it's the cold, it's the stress of knowing that there are those missiles and you don't know what's going to happen next. So it's very hard for them.
And you can't you can't prepare a cup of tea which can comfort you from inside. In
No.
which way is the pastor and is your community helping the people on the ground?
Yes, so we have connections, as I said, and we send when people, churches, and individuals in New Zealand, they give donations, and we buy supplies in Poland and in Europe, and then we send it, deliver it into Ukraine, into Western Ukraine, and then it gets delivered into the front lines. And we have volunteers who go to the front line. They bring the humanitarian aid and they take people out. There are churches that now, with the help of SGA, they work as hostels because they have, say, generator or solar panel that was delivered by SGA people. So there is, people can go and warm up and they can have their cup of tea. They can charge their mobiles. And we're not talking just central cities, we're talking about small villages, which is not easy to reach sometimes. And with the humanitarian aid, especially people talk about, for example, the other day I got a report from the village near Kakhovka where the dam was destroyed last year. So they are still in need of chemical cleaning chemicals and medication, first aid, food, of course, because people who are internally displaced, they don't get much, to live on. They need to rent a place. And as I said, sometimes the church is their hotel or hostel.
Is the association working together with other charities on the ground to help people?
Well, we work through our churches, and
Mhm.
this is enough because it's already, we've been working with them, and I mean, pastors and churches for many years. So we trust them and we work directly with them. Yeah, all the trust that we don't really need any other people involved, like other charities, because we are the charity. Mm.
Mhm. And you know your people, and it's within the community and you're widespread. And I'm sure
Mm.
that they also need the pastoral help and that support.
Yes, they get this support because pastors are trained and lay ministers, they're trained to help people. Although recently we started getting the reports that the pastors are tired too because they're just human beings.
Mm.
It's hard for them too. They're one of the pastor's wives, she was saying that her brother is on the front line and she can relate to what people are going through. They're also Ukrainians, they're also suffering.
Elena, we're approaching Christmas. Do you have a special wish What would you wish if you had the magic wand?
Oh, good question. I would ask for the end of war. Not for just ceasefire, as people are talking about now, but for the end of war. And if people could pray for Ukrainians, for their peace in their hearts, and not only for the Christians, but for people who struggle now they need God, they don't know about it yet. When they come and turn up on the steps of the church, they need food, but then they find Christ. And I would love that there will be more like this, people more, and also not only on the Ukrainian side, but on the Russian side as well,
Yeah.
for
Thank
peace in the world.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think that's our big hope and prayer, peace for the world. And there are so many areas, and especially you are connected to Ukraine. So I wish you all the best, and we'll keep the Ukrainian people and the Russian people in our prayers, especially at this moment. Thank you very much, Elena.
Thank you so much.
Out there, heroic peace is calling. In the bonds of love we meet. For the world, a new day dawning and shine.